this up. Give people a couple minutes.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone tonight? If you can, go ahead and comment on here. Who are you? Where are you from? If you feel comfortable. Some people I know, they just like to creep.
True. Some people just want to watch and not be identified. So
Yeah, and you can do that. But we know you're watching. We see you. Actually, we don't see you.
Travis. It's a little big brotherish.
It is. It is. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. We have had so much fun doing this online live group, and we're just grateful for all the engagement that we've had for the last 2 live groups. And this evening, we are going to dive into, I think, a really important topic. We're going to talk about technology, the internet, social media, different ways that could affect your relationships. But before we do that, we've got some gifts. Well, one in particular.
Have one gift for tonight. If you remember last week, we said the person with the funniest story that they shared would get this Applebee's card. And we decided, we thought the funniest story was from
Sarah Dickens. You had the funniest story. It was amazing.
Great. Yeah. So you get this $25 Applebee's gift card. Maybe you and your husband can go on a date, or I don't know, maybe you want to go with your friends. I don't know, whatever you want to do. It'll be fun though. And we're glad you won. And thank you for sharing that story. It was awesome. We laughed when we read it. So
we did. And
it was pretty great.
This week too, if you are tuning in and you want to leave comments, ask questions, share this on your page, tag somebody you know. This week we have one of the best gift cards ever.
Target card, $25 to Target.
So if you share, if you comment, if you engage in this online live group,
we will put your name in a bucket and draw next week. Next Tuesday, we'll draw live and see who wins. So if you want a chance at winning a free $25 gift card to Target, just comment, like, engage, however. So anyways, we're excited for tonight, and we're glad to have people joining us.
Yeah.
It's been great. Oops.
Rebecca, silence your phone.
Oh my gosh.
We're in church right now.
That's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yes. So we have, I don't know if you knew this, but this is the first ever online life group that we've ever done. And it's been so fun. It's been so fun to just be able to share. There's people that are tuning in from kind of all over the place, not just Fargo-Moorhead. And it's been fun to be able to just share some of our life and what to do and what not to do. And
we have a lot of stories about what not to do. We have plenty of that. So
yeah, and I think, it's funny. I feel like every time we kind of have a conversation on here, it's like you've heard the old saying, you better practice what you preach. I feel like we've had opportunities to deal with conflict. We've had opportunities to enforce boundaries. And, I was 100% like preparing for tonight and just felt like so challenged.
Yeah, I think, this area of technology is such a huge area right now in our lives, and it's going to continue to be. Like, it's not going away. It's not going to change anytime soon. I think technology is going to become even more accessible. We're going to have better phones, better coverage on our phones, better internet. And so just getting a grip on this is so important. And, we're not experts, because we are we have our own struggles. And so, but we're just sharing what we've learned. And some of you have many more years of experience in life than we do, but we just love to, we just love to share. What are you saying?
John Michael Sherman said that he's watching live from his truck in Texas. He's skipping out on Rich Wilkerson Jr. Because we're better. Wow. wow, I think we might just have to give him the gift card.
He
for
wants
that.
the gift card, I think,
Yeah.
because wow.
Yeah.
Anyways, I love it.
Yeah, someone else said they reactivated their Facebook account just to tune in tonight. Man, I hope we don't disappoint, guys.
Yeah,
I hope we don't disappoint.
Hopefully we're okay. Okay, like, okay, we gotta bring it now, Chad.
We have to bring it. So I want to start off by saying, when it comes to the area of smartphones, technology, this isn't just like one thing. I mean, I think we could talk about everything. We could talk about how you can stream Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu, and
we love all those things. So
yeah, and how there's just we've never lived in a time where there was so much so many things that were really trying to grab our attention.
Yeah.
And so many things that we could spend time. We've never lived in a time where you had access to relationships with all over the world, information all over the world, and I personally, I mean, I love it. I love that we get to do that. I love that we get to connect with friends, and I love that we get to meet people. And I want to share some pros about social media, technology, and the advancements that's happened and how my life is better and how I think our society is better. I want to start off by just saying this quote, and it's that, and I don't know where I heard this from, so if you guys know where this is from, then you can. But everything that we own is either a tool or an idol. Everything that we own is either a tool or an idol. So it can be a tool that can be used to help people to advance the kingdom, or it can be an idol. It can be something that can steal our attention. It can steal our affections. And so I think that one thing that is just funny to note about the irony is we talk about the dangers of social media, and we talk about, we're going to talk about some of the cons too, but as we talk about how do we navigate the tension of through like embracing the world that we live in, but yet having an understanding of how it is actually changing how we communicate. It's changing how we process information. It's literally rewiring our brains. I mean, it's incredible to see how, these things are affecting it. But let's just talk about the irony of the fact that we're watching this on Facebook, on YouTube. Like, we get to
using technology to talk about technology.
Yeah, we get to use this thing that we're going to be discussing about tonight to create engagement, reach more people, and it's why we do these gift cards and why we want to be a blessing to other people, and because we want to add value to as many people as we can. And can you imagine the Apostle Paul with a smartphone? Can you imagine what he would do on the phone, how he would, and I was just thinking about my day today as we knew that this night was going to come. I mean, I'm working on sermon content on here. I'm Marco Poloing, if you haven't heard of the app Marco Polo, it's a video messaging app. I'm talking to friends in Texas, and I'm praying for people, and I'm encouraging people, and I'm talking about Sunday morning service, and I'm doing all different kinds of things. I'm looking at my calendar, and I schedule time with Jesus. I schedule my dates on here. I mean, I do believe that I'm more of an effective person and communicator because of technology. And I think that having the access of being able to sit in an airport and work on a sermon, or connect with my kids, or being able to, while I'm waiting at an appointment, and have the ability to keep working, or contact my wife, or find my iPhone. Where are you? Where are you at, Becky? Oh, what does find my iPhone say?
Do you have to do that a lot?
Never have to do that. but I can do that with my
random.
I could do that with my kids, and it's pretty amazing to be able to keep tabs on where my kids are at using that. And so I think that it's important to note that we don't just shoot down all of these notions that technology is the devil, and
we know. I mean, we all use technology. Anybody watching this, you're using technology, so we know that it can be a huge pro, and obviously there's drawbacks with anything that, like Travis said, it can become, did you say a tool?
Tool or an idol.
Yeah. And so I think for us, Travis and I were old enough that we didn't always have this. So we didn't always have technology. I mean, I remember playing, Oregon Trail on the which was like now like these Apple like computers that were.
You have died of dysentery.
Yes, like I mean all of that. Like we would have to go to the library, share a computer with someone, and then I think even then we took turns. I think there was like 6 computers or something, like very limited amount of computers, and obviously no internet. I remember in high school, I think it was, or no, actually I think in college was when emailing kind of became more of a thing, and I had a cell phone in late high school, early college that literally I never took out of my car. I would plug it into the cigarette lighter, and like I only used it if there's an emergency. Like we didn't bring it with us, So I'm old enough to remember life without technology in this way. I remember sitting at home, my parents would go run errands or do something, and I would be like, well, hope they come back. I guess if I need something, I'm calling the grocery store and having them, page them over the intercom. Like you didn't have access to you now. So sometimes that can be overwhelming that people have access to us all the time. I think sometimes as a parent, I'm so thankful. That's one of the best things I think about technology is that we can be in touch with our kids all the time. Every day at 3:45, I text my kids and say, I am here, ready to pick you up. Please come out. And they know that, but it's like, I can just be like, I'm here. This is where I'm parked. Come find me, So technology is the best in that way. And I think our kids having access to us and us having access to our kids for the most part is positive. Now, when Travis is home alone with the kids and I'm at a meeting and I'm getting text messages about ridiculous things like, could I have a snack, or can I watch this TV show? It's like, your dad is home. Stop texting me. Those are the times where you're kind of like, where's your dad? I know he's in the house. Where is he?
He's playing Oregon Trail.
Probably is. There probably is like a
I
modern
think there's
version.
probably an app of Oregon Trail.
We haven't looked into that. But if you have, comment so we know.
Yeah, before we kind of dive into more content, just want to be able to just say, hey, if you have questions as we're talking, please feel free to just put them in the comments. We're watching these. If you don't want it on the comment, you can direct message us as well. But this is a life group, so meaning we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to. I love seeing some of these comments. Oregon Trail is getting some love right now, so people understand those things.
We're all walking down memory lane right now.
Yeah, I remember beepers. Anyone else have a pager?
Oh yeah, pager. Yeah. No, I didn't.
You could actually.
I wasn't that cool, Trev.
Message people. I remember my parents. They had their first cell phone was this big briefcase that.
Yeah, this big thing that would sit in your console of your phone.
And you remember fax machines? Are they still a thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't work in an office, so I don't know.
I remember the paper on fax machines were super weird. But my mom and dad, sometimes you could press the button and it would push out paper on fax machine. I would just use that to scribble, and my parents were like, where's the paper for the fax machine? It's so expensive. And so
I didn't know it had its own special paper.
We are just going down memory lane but But you think about that when we were kids, you know, internet, it was a thing, but it wasn't popular. It wasn't like everyone had it. And then there was like AOL and You've Got Mail, and like people started emailing, and then it was like more people started having access to internet, and then it was like you could start sending pictures, and you could. And I remember when the smartphone, like how phones have evolved, and texting. I remember even saying like texting will never be a thing. Oh my word, how wrong was I?
Remember the keyboard that like the phone would slide up, and then you could text with both thumbs, and it was like, it's like now phones don't even have keyboards. You know? Hey, we have a question.
No, it's not a question. It's a comment.
Do you guys take a night or evening to unplug from electronics?
Oh, that is a question. Yes, we're going to talk about that. We're going to discuss that, so that will come up for sure. Great question. Great question.
Yeah, we will talk about that.
Yeah, so because one of the things that we want to do is just talk about like practical next steps about where do you find the rhythm for using electronics, and even especially with family when you have kids and you have more people involved in you know, last night, if I'm super transparent, I know like getting ready to talk about electronics, and I'm looking around the room, and I have one kid that's on the Nintendo Connect. I have another kid that's Nintendo Switch, and then I have another kid on their smartphone, and the Netflix is going, and 2 kids downstairs playing Madden online. I mean, we live in a world where there's a lot of engagement happening with electronics, and VCRs using to record stuff, you know, times 100% have changed. Remember, watching cartoons on Saturdays, you couldn't stream stuff.
You have to like record. Do you guys remember this? You have to record it with the VCR tape, and then you have to like fast forward forever to get like hours of television, because you couldn't like just say, oh, just record this show. It would be like, I'm leaving at 4 o'clock, my show's at 7. Is this tape long enough to cover that whole time?
Right.
Do you remember that?
And then if your parents used that tape to watch something else, you go to watch it, and there was
recorded over, because you could record over.
You just be like, what in the heck?
All those good memories. Our kids will never experience all that. It's kind of too bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So sad.
So I think it's important. We did some research, and one of the books that we're going to be using tonight to quote, I actually don't have the paper copy. Again, talk about the irony. I just have it on my Kindle, but it's called Irresistible: The Rise of Technology, the Rise of Addiction to Technology. Irresistible: The Rise of, and it's a really, really fascinating book. It's not a Christian book, just so you know. If you listen to it or watch it, you know, it does have some colorful language, but it talks about all these different studies about addiction in general, and then it talks about how, for example, one study was about pigeons, and they were trained. They would give food to these pigeons, and they were trained to hit this button. And then when they hit the button, they could either choose food or they could choose the button. And if they hit the button, it would create an electronic stimulus in their brain. And they would choose that electronic stimulus because it was more fulfilling than eating. And they would literally choose the sensation that it created in their brain as opposed to eating. And they would just keep hitting that button, keep hitting that button, keep hitting that button. And they used that same kind of experiment with chimpanzees and rats, and they used all, and the same thing happened, that when they could get that sensation of dopamine released to their brain, and if you're familiar at all with addiction, that's the same thing that gets released when someone is addicted to pornography, or when someone is addicted to heroin, or even work. You can get a release of dopamine from overworking, and so now we're seeing and we're recognizing that on Facebook, when you go to your page and you see, like, right now we've got 28 comments on this, and we've got 24 people watching. Oh, there's actually a release of dopamine because there's a satisfaction that comes from, wow, we've got engagement. Or if you're on Instagram, you know, you look at that and you see all these people that liked my post, and it's that release of dopamine. In social media, YouTube, Facebook, you know, all these things, they're literally, what are they wanting to do? They want you to be on there as long as possible for these games, you know, these Toy Blast and Bingo. And
not with real money, guys. It's with the cherries they give you and the coins they give you. Like, I'm not spending money on bingo. Let's just clarify that.
What are they doing? Like, they want you to watch.
They want you to buy more cherries and coins. But I don't do that because I think that's a waste of money. But there's probably a lot of people that do. I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing. You really want to win. But what do you win? More cherries and gold coins. What's the point?
The point is that, like, game developers, social media developers, or like, even I noticed, like, I love the Bible app. The Bible app is amazing. But you know what they have now on the home page, like, streaks, like, how many times have you read your Bible this week, and you're going for those streaks. And why is Snapchat so, like, prevalent with our kids? Like, they're going for these streaks. Like, TikTok, why is that so kind of a thing? Like, parents are like, what is this TikTok thing? Or some people are like that, and it's like it's like 15 seconds of immediate gratification. They're not having to wait. They're not having to watch a whole YouTube video. You can go to it and literally be able to just look at it. And we're gonna get to these questions. We got some great questions.
I can't wait. Great
questions here. So it's really one of those things where you just have to be aware and understand that there is a money element in the sense of the longer that you're watching. Same thing with YouTube, Hulu. You know, why are all these people creating original content? They want you to pick them. You know, they want you to watch what they are having to offer. They want you to stay online so that you can see, you know, social media. They want you to see the ads that their sponsors are selling.
Isn't it creepy how you, like, search for something online and then all of a sudden you're scrolling Facebook and it shows up in Facebook or an Instagram ad? Like, I mean, you're like, it's clear that there is a targeted message trying to be sent.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm. I think, you know, talking more about the study that they did, I think the interesting thing, and I've read parts of that book that Travis talked about, just talking about addiction in general and how, you know, there's we can all think of, like, the typical sorts of things that we say we're addicted to, but there's also, you know, electronic sort of addictions and things that, you know, online addiction. People are, like, so addicted to checking their phone. And you know, if you want to do any sort of research on this, there's a lot of information out there now. It used to be that there wasn't as much info about the effects of some of these things, and but man, there's so much info, and you can read research, you can, like, look up studies, I mean, there's just a lot of information you can wade through and kind of get some stats and info. But I think for us, we just want to be really practical about it too. And I think the most helpful thing and the best way for us to have a conversation about this is to just kind of walk through some of your questions. Like, what do you suggest? You know, what have you done? What's working and not working for you, and those sorts of things. So, do you want to answer questions?
Yeah, I think that we should.
Travis Lynn, no, you're the one that's setting your phone.
Yeah, well, the reason why I'm going to my phone is so that I can answer these questions, because for some reason I can't go scroll back on them here. But I think one of the questions that was asked earlier on is, do you guys take a night or evening to unplug from electronics? That's a great question. From a parent perspective, one of the things that, and I think that we shared this in one of our other live groups, is having the policy to have your kids' phones like upstairs at night is.
I mean, if you have an upstairs, or if that's
right, like have a common place.
Central charging station is essentially what we're saying.
Yeah, so their phones are not in their room at night is a great principle as far as like, that's an every night thing. That isn't just a one night. I think for us, it depends on the night. Meaning, there's a lot of times we're not all home on an evening.
Yeah.
So I think instead of saying like, is there a night during the week? I think that for us, we try to have consistent family time where we're saying, put your phones away. Let's talk face to face. For example, we're taking a trip soon, and we know that we're going to have some time as a family, and it's not, we're not going to all be on our phones, unless it's to take, of course, the picture that you need to take to prove that you're spending time together as a family. But we're not going to, we're going to have a time where we put that down. And I think that leads to kind of another point that is a prevailing problem in our world, and that is that we have a lot of online communication, which is absolutely communication. Sometimes people are like, you're not having meaningful relationships online. Well, we've like met missionaries that we support that ended up being some of our best friends from Facebook groups online. And like to say that it's not a meaningful connection isn't a valid argument, but I think that it's one of those components, coming back to the original question of, do you have time that you do unplug? The answer to that is yes. And they actually said in that same book, Irresistible, that
we'll link the book. Somebody's asking about it. We'll link it in the comments.
Yep. And there's a couple other resources that we'll link in the comments as well that give some parents practical advice or different apps that you can use. And so we'll put some resources on there. But sleeping next to your phone, actually, it has caused a lot of restlessness where people will wake up in the middle of the night sometimes, and the first thing they do is check their email, or they check so what is that doing? It's interrupting you from being restful. And so
I think the other thing to be aware of, so we're kind of in a unique situation because we do use our phones for work, and we're kind of in the business of being on call. And so like being purposeful about even communicating, like we communicate with our staff when we're going to be done responding to emails. Like, will I get the message? Of course I'll see the notification, but it doesn't mean I'm going to respond. And I think setting those boundaries and then telling someone else, is really good, because if we don't have any accountability in that, then what's the point, right? Because we're just not going to follow through. But I think for us, we've had to learn how to set those boundaries, and then you do have to stick to them. And the best way to stick to them is to tell somebody else that you're going to do it, just like anything else in life. And so we've done that with our staff, where we've said like, hey, if it's after 6:30 and it isn't urgent, please just shoot me an email. I will check it the first thing in the morning, or even once my kids are in bed, possibly, if I have time and I feel like I want to do that. But it's a good boundary to set for us, and then we're all aware of it. And so it's just one thing to do. You guys have other people you're going to stay accountable to. Maybe you tell your spouse, or maybe you tell your kids, or maybe you tell your family or your friends, like, hey, just so you know, like Fridays, I'm not checking Facebook or whatever. So I think just setting boundaries in that. I did want to say one thing too about when Charles was saying communicating via online and technology, how that can still be meaningful. One of the best things that I love to do is communicate with my kids during the day and text them, or just shoot them a quick message. Like, there's times when I don't get to see Zane in the morning, or I don't get to see Tate in the morning because I'm taking someone else to an appointment, or we have an appointment. And so they get up and get on the bus and we're already gone. And so like being able to use that to communicate and just be like, hey, hope you have a good day. Sorry I didn't get to see you. Love you, bud. And like, just, I don't know, I feel like it's such an easy, simple thing to do. But if we could do that as parents, I think that's really awesome. Our kids eat that stuff up, you know, being positive.
Yeah, that's a practical way to use technology to your benefit.
Yeah.
One other question I want to get to, and please keep them coming. This is great. This is great. Great questions. Jesse asked the question: what age is an appropriate age for a kid to get a smartphone, and do you use an app to filter content? 100% use apps to filter comment. We did link content. We did link in the contents. There's a focus on a family resource from Plugged In that will help. It has a bunch of different things for online and for smartphones as well.
Yeah.
Keeping track of how much time. Guys, I don't know if you know this, and ladies, that was just like guys, people. I don't know if you know this, but I mean, this isn't just an issue with kids. Sometimes we think, well, kids need boundaries. Like, no, like we need boundaries. Like we are just as prone to spending. And sometimes we're like, well, we're adults. We get the right to do that. Well, yeah, but at what cost? At what cost do we have the right to do that? And there is something that has to give. And so I think understanding, that let's finish his question though.
Yeah, I would say this about that question, Jesse. We'll use our own selves as examples. We gave Zane a smartphone
when he was in middle school.
We loved him, but he broke the screen on that phone. Like what? I don't know. We lost count. I mean, we just would replace the screen and it was fine. But he would break the phone. He would break the screen. Eventually, he learned how to order the kit on Amazon and fix it himself.
And replace his own screen because he broke it so many times.
So I would say this: we've never gotten our kids expensive phones. Zane, with him, I think we started out. We probably spent the most, or probably got him the nicest phone when he first got a phone because we're like, oh, this will be great. And the reality is, we learned buy a used phone, make it cheap.
Yeah. So I mean, back to the original question though about age.
So this is the reason we got our kids a phone.
Yeah.
The reason we picked junior high or like middle school age was because we wanted our kids to be able to get a hold of us. Now, the reality is they don't need a smartphone to get a hold of us. Like they don't. But I will tell you this: having an Apple iPhone, there's a lot of things that are so nice about it. Like Travis said, you can track them.
Hey, Apple, if you're watching, you should sponsor us and just send us some new phones.
Right?
Yeah, let's ride this gravy train, people. Come on.
But that is what we found to be really helpful, actually, is because we can track them, we can text with them even before they have service. Like our girls have iPods that don't have service, and you can still text with them. You can shut them down. You can take certain apps off of there. You can filter things. So they can't buy stuff without your approval. Like there's so many positive things, and I'm sure there's some of these things.
You can do that for Android too, but
But for whatever reason, iPhones have they've worked really well for our family. And so Zane, I think he was younger than the other three will be because they're older than he is in their grade. So he went to school earlier. So he was like 6th or 7th grade. Tate was the same grade, but a little bit older. And the girls don't have phones. Well, not yet. We just put service on one of their phones because that's another story, but we had 2 for foster care. But so we don't really, we monitor them closely. And
can't just screw it like foster care. Like, what is Nadia in foster care? Like for people that
No,
we're applying for foster care
Sorry.
to adopt, and we needed a phone to be at home in order to put on that application, and so that's why she got service.
Yes.
So
that's the whole reason. But we wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, so I want to dive specifically into the age specific because I think that's a great question, and I'm not going to answer it with an age specific because I actually think some of it depends on the maturity level of the kid. So I'll go there, and then I think we should dive into that a little bit more. But meaning, like, there are some 13-year-olds that have the maturity level of a 10-year-old, and that's probably not wise for them to have the ability to be on their phone for as long as they want. Same thing with a 16-year-old that might again, you might want them to have a phone for certain reasons, but you might have to have more restrictions for them. I will say this, and this is one of the principles that I wrote down, that I think that it's really, really, really important to understand that your job as a parent is to, sometimes we're like, well, we need to respect our kids' privacy. No, you do not. Can I just say that again? Like, you do not. You need to know what your kids are texting. You need to be able to have the right to get on your kid's phone at any time. You need to be able to 100%, they should absolutely know that it is your job to protect your children. And yes, one day they're going to have all the privacy in the world that they want. But while they're living in your house, it's your job as their caregiver to teach them how to manage the tension of, I have responsibilities in my life, and I also have this smartphone that can distract me from everything. And I have access to things that I didn't have access to when I was in junior high.
I will say this too. I said this in a different video that we made earlier in this life group. Different things are going to affect your kids differently. So I would say pay attention to, when they use a certain app, what does that do? Like, does it create kind of, because when you read online about what happens in individuals when they spend a lot of time online, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of depression, there's a lot of like comparison going on. And I think just for kids, like, that's a natural thing that's going to happen. They can't really avoid that. And so we don't know when your child is going to be ready for a phone, but I will say this. If you are feeling like, I want to wait a while to give my child a phone, I don't want them to have access to stuff, they don't need a phone, I don't really need to be able to get a hold of them or track with it, I think that's perfectly fine. Just keep in mind that everyone around them, our girls are in 5th grade, and I would say the majority of their friends have a phone already. So they're 10-year-olds, 10 and 11, they have phones. And like I said, our girls don't have phones, but they take it everywhere with them. But they are going to be exposed to things just because their friends have phones. And so we still have to do our due diligence, even if our kids don't quite have their own phone yet. We have to do our job to train them. What do you do when, like, we just had this conversation this week? One of our girls said, somebody showed me this thing, and I don't remember what.
It was like a scary movie trailer on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. And she said, like, that kind of freaked me out a little bit. And I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't need to be worrying about this. And Travis just said, like, next time you have any idea what that kid is going to show you, you say, no, I don't want to see that. I have no desire to see that. And just stop that, or even if that kid just wants to show you something, now he's going to probably show you something inappropriate. And so teaching our kids how to filter things, how to know when to say something to us, when to say something to that peer, what to say in those awkward situations, because They might, they might not know what to say, and it can be really hard. It's stressful when everybody around them has their own phone, and everybody has different regulations for their kids, and so even your kids' friends who you might let them have a play date with or hang out with, they might have access to different things on their phone than you would let your own child have. So just keep that in mind. I just like to share that because I think sometimes we have this idea that if we don't give our kids a phone, that we can protect them from that. And we can, to some extent, we can protect them from their own phone. But we got to remember their peers all have phones.
Yeah, and I think that you kind of speaking specifically about communication, phones and technology and iPads, whatever, computers, in some ways it has, in my opinion, I think that we talk a lot about EQ and emotional intelligence, but I think that we actually have to teach our kids practically, what does social interaction look like? How do you respect someone in person? How do you, in one really practical way to respect people in person is if you're having a face-to-face meeting with them, don't just be like this, how many parents does that drive you nuts? Like, what are you doing right now? Put that down. And so, I think teaching proper etiquette, not just about technology, but also about how do you, because for example, what Becky was sharing about this kid that showed, one of our daughters this YouTube video that we would never have wanted her to watch on her own, and so walking through that, like, here's what you say, here's what you should do, here's how you should handle that. I think that one of the things that we kind of have somewhat used as a crutch is the ability we can just text someone, and if you want to communicate how you're feeling, just really hot, like, come on, like, we do this to each other, like, we'll put the angry, if they didn't get, I went to the store but I didn't get what you asked, like, rah. And so we kind of have this ability to communicate almost and circumvent this ability to actually communicate feelings, communicate emotions, how to handle and respond to emotions. And even though we have people who have access to more information, I think emotionally and even in a ability to communicate in a mature way, I think that we're almost more immature. Like,
I think knowing what is appropriate to text and what is appropriate to say face to face, like understanding, like, not everything should be in a text, or not everything should be in an email. There are conversations that should only happen face to face, and you don't get to just skip out of that conversation because you don't feel like having that face to face conversation. Like, you're still going to have some sort of conversation, even if you try to text your way out of it, and I think too, we all know that texting or emailing or seeing something in print doesn't express the feeling and the intent behind things the way that having that personal conversation does. And so it's easy to misread things. It's easy to misunderstand. And I think we can all do a better job of bringing clarity in those situations. And sometimes if it is a really emotional something, or it's a really intense kind of conversation you're having, just making a point of saving those conversations for face-to-face is really good. And it's, there's things I would never text Travis. Well, that's maybe not true. I was going to say conversations that should happen face-to-face. I think with our spouse, it's the easiest to just kind of like take the filter off and kind of do that. But I think, we just have to be aware of that, and aware of that, just the social piece of that, and with our families and teaching our kids more than ever. Our kids need to learn this because they are just so, any awkward situation, they can just get on their phone and pretend to be busy and kind of check out, and that just isn't real life. I mean, it kind of is real life for them, but in reality, there's going to be plenty of awkward situations where you don't get to just check out, or uncomfortable, conversations that need to be had or whatever. So I think just realizing that can be a barrier too.
Yeah. Great question from Lynn here. She asked, how do you guys as parents explain to your kids that they aren't ready for a phone? I have a third grader who keeps asking for one because her peers have one. Unsure if this is answered yet. I think that's a great question. So anytime, and whether it's regard to a phone or, hey, my friends do this, and it's a great opportunity to share what your values are, like what your family values are. Like, hey, other people might do this, but this is what we're going to choose to do. And you could talk about that with dating. You could talk about content, like what, can we go to this movie? Well, no, we really want you to see that movie. You're not really ready to see that movie, or however it is. It's an opportunity for you to explain, other people might do this, and this might be the reason why they do this, but this is what our family is choosing to do. And just understand, hey, you may not get that, you may not appreciate that, and we understand that. But you just have to know we love you and we are for you. And when you're ready, and then I do think deciding, even though, deciding, hey, we'll talk about when it's comfortable with your family, like we'll talk about this when you get to middle school, or we'll talk about this again when you get to high school. But right now there's not a need for you to have this. And so
I think along those same lines, we've really tried to help our kids realize, like, and I know it's hard when they're little because they just don't understand why there should be a difference between them and their friends. I think one of the best things that you can use that opportunity for is just to help them try to understand, like, we are not like every other family or every other friend, that you have. And so they're going to be able to do things that you aren't going to be able to do. You're going to be able to do stuff that they're not going to be able to do. And it just isn't fair to compare. And killing that need to compare from the beginning is just so good, because for us, one of those things is sleepovers. We've just not done a lot of sleepovers with our kids because we just feel like it's not necessarily a necessity. Our kids each have a couple friends that they can do that with, but for years it was like we just had to keep saying, like, I realize other kids are doing that, but we are not doing that, and this is why. And so just walking through that with people or with kids, and then helping them see that other people have their own values. And it gets harder the older they get, but I think even our older kids, because we've been through that with them, there's things that they probably used to ask about that they wouldn't ask about now, because they just know that we're going to say no. And they know why. It's not just that we're going to say no, but they understand why.
Yeah, I want to segue. Hopefully that answered your question, Lynn. But I want to segue into a principle that I think is important, and that is, leading by example. And in the sense of, if you are trying to chat with your child about all, how they might be so engaged in social media, or, they might be doing all these, you're on Snapchat all these times and all these people, and you are yourself when they're trying to have a conversation with you on your phone, there's a discrepancy there. And if you want your words to carry weight with your kids, then you have to practice what you preach. And you also have to take ownership of, hey, you know what? I am distracted, or, hey, I need to put my phone down, or I struggle with this as well. Or, because I think that's important for our kids to see us, we're prone to the same addictions. We're prone to the same desire to be on that. Now, as adults, we actually might have the ability and maturity to do something about it, whereas in kids, they may not have that level of self-control, which is why, addiction, technology addiction among teens is actually more of an issue than drugs, more of an issue than alcohol. It's literally changing how people communicate, how they interact with each other. And so and also this is only going to get more complex. This is not a problem that's going to go away. This is a problem that's here to stay. So it's something that we're going to have to walk through. And to those that would say, like, you might be all or nothing, like, well, we're just not doing this at all. We're not going to. Okay. To that, I want to challenge that thinking. Like, we're not going to have phones, and our kids aren't going to do this. And I agree that sometimes kids are getting phones way too early.
Oh yeah.
But
we've seen that. Yeah.
But would you like to be the person that gets to navigate through that tension before they get to college or before they leave your home? Or, as we talked about this in the group last week, that your role, especially as your kids get older, is coach. And so as coach of your kids, do you want to have the ability to help them navigate through these same things that you're having to navigate through, where you can be honest and transparent about your struggles, and instead of just kind of leading with this iron fist, like we're all or nothing, like let's navigate through the tension of this together.
And having those conversations, I think, is huge. I know this isn't a parenting video, but one of the things in that parenting class that we took that they talked about was have the conversation. Don't just say no to things, but explain the context. Why? Why would we not run through the church lobby? Because we don't want to knock someone over or trample over a little one, or you know what I mean? Like, just as an example, like when we say we're not doing the phone right now, or we don't do these things, or let's have conversations. Let's just not make blanket statements, but let's actually have conversations about things. I think one of our biggest priorities has been to try to walk through things with our kids instead of pushing things off until they're out of our home, because we could do that, right? There's the option to keep them back from doing a lot of things that maybe they could encounter some things that might be harmful, or they might be exposed to something that might not line up with what we believe. But the reality is, one way or another, they're going to experience the world, whether we're talking about technology or dating or driving or anything else. And the reality is, as parents, I feel like that's one of our biggest responsibilities. And that's why God creates families, right? So children have people to walk through hard things with them and to navigate through that, to navigate through some failures, possibly. I mean, if my kids are going to fail, I want to be there to walk through that with them. And not to say you can't do that as an adult.
Yep.
But the reality is, it's a lot easier when they live in your home, and you can create those opportunities for conversation much easier, throughout the day or throughout the week. And so that's just one thing that we've really tried to. I know there's a lot of fear in parenting, and I know it's easy to fall into fear and let anxiety kind of set in about things we can't control, but we also trust God, and we believe that God will make up the difference. Like, we can't be perfect parents, and we can't be perfect spouses, and we can't be perfect, like, fill in the blank, coworkers, kids, whatever, friends, all those things. And so, we want to navigate through all that.
Yeah, a couple other kind of things. Don't be afraid to ask any questions as we're going. We're trying to respond to these as much as we can in real time. This is an online life group, so we'd love to hear your take. But one other kind of principle that I think is important, and kind of switching gears here, not just talking about parenting or kids, but about our own presence online, our own image that we're portraying online, if you will. And the need, even especially in marriages or if you're in a relationship, the need to be aware that intimacy can and often does begin in communication, whether it's in a text, a call, and so just kind of want to share about some principles with this. Like as a pastor, there's times that I'm having to text women. There's times that I have to communicate with women. I have to make phone calls with women. A lot of times I'll do that with Becky. A lot of times I will add her to the thread, and that protects me. And it also protects the person that I'm communicating with. Now, that doesn't happen 100% of the time, but it does a good majority of the time. And I think that when it comes to being married, in the same way, my wife has the ability to look at my phone at any time. I want her to feel safe and secure and feel like I have nothing to hide. And so, but you have to be, the reason why I want to bring this up is I think that sometimes, again, intimacy, we shared a little bit about this in whether it was on the Family Matters sermon or
we
I
can't
remember it all.
Guys.
But if there's a lack of intimacy between you and your spouse, then a lot of times we're going to try to make up for that somewhere else. And we have to be careful because there's other people that are hurting and hungry and want needs met as well. But I would err on the side of being cautious about how you communicate online, what you're saying online, and remember that you have a witness. Like what you're posting is a witness. It's a representation of you. Getting on. Don't respond to the trolls. Like, don't get caught up in online debates and don't get sucked into things that don't matter. Like, let's again, imagine if Jesus had a smartphone, what would he do with it? Some people are like, well, he would throw it in the river and baptize it. No, he wouldn't. He would use it to share. He would tweet the Beatitudes every day, guys. Like, he would use it to.
Would he?
I don't know. He might. He may not use Twitter. I don't know if Jesus is on Twitter, but the point of what I'm trying to make is it can be a tremendous tool, but we have to be. I love the scripture. Be innocent as doves and wise as serpents.
Yeah, I think we just can't be too careful online, and I do think that it's easy to think it's fine, it's not a big deal, whatever. But like Travis, what he's saying, just putting some safeguards in place is really good. And if you are not married and you're single, like, do you have a friend that can kind of help you stay accountable to what you're doing online or who you're interacting with online? And I think you need to set some guidelines, and then, just like we talked about before, interact with people in your life who can help you stay accountable. Like, consistently interact with them. Like, maybe you talk to them once a week and check in, or maybe it's every other day or whatever it is. But like, some of us need accountability because we can't have self-control on our own, and some of us are making inappropriate comments on things that we shouldn't be, or posting inappropriate things that we shouldn't be. And we just need people in our life that will say, like, "Ooh, you probably should take that down," or, you know what I mean? Like, we all need that. And so if you don't have friends in your life that can do that or can say that to you, like, find them, figure out who that is, because you need that. And if you don't have that, how do you know? If we're just our own filter, how do we know how we're coming across to other people, or how people are taking what we're putting out there? And I think as Christians as well, if you're a Christian and you're watching this, I think we want to be really careful. We don't want to put out anything on my social media that would make someone feel bad about themselves.
Yeah.
I want to be careful.
Yep.
And I want to share truth and I want to be really careful with that, because the reality is we do have influence on social media. What we put up, people read and they see it, and they can screenshot it and save it. And like, we just have to be really careful with that. And so, there's practical things. We could walk through all those practical things, but I think
I have a practical scripture that I think can sometimes help with this, and whether it's online or just in conversation in general. And it's this. It is in John chapter 1, and it's talking about Jesus and the ministry of Jesus. And it says that in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It's talking about Jesus and his deity. And it says that, and then it goes on to talk about like what things used to be like before Jesus. So he's talking about Moses. And it says this: out of his fullness, meaning Jesus's fullness, we have all received grace in place of grace already given. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. And so you might want to say some truth because someone is saying something crazy and you're like, I'm going to drop some truth. But is that grace? Like, is it graceful? Is your truth seasoned with grace? Because that's who Jesus is. He confronts, but he loves.
Yeah.
He confronts, but he's accepting. And even this is a great principle to deal with your kids. Like, are you, sometimes we can see them do something like, oh my gosh, they posted this and they said this, and then you like want to drop the truth bomb, but actually you want to respond with grace, because how you handle that is a big deal, and you want to be able to continue to have the right to teach them and coach them and help them. So grace and truth is a powerful combination when it comes to this.
And I would say err on the side of grace when it comes to social media. Like, you can always have those truth conversations in person. Those are great in-person conversations, but we don't want to say things that'll alienate people or make them feel like they're not measuring up, in a really broad way on a social platform. We wouldn't want to do that, and I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. I mean, that is a private conversation to be had. And so, and maybe this is a great measuring stick too, to say, if you don't even have the relationship with that person that you would have a private conversation
come on,
with them,
preach, Becky Lynn,
then
preach.
why are you trying to share truth with them without grace? Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. That means you are not close enough to that person to even have that conversation that should be done in private anyways.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, just be really mindful of that. People really, they can really take things personal. And I mean, we have to learn not to be, offended so easily and quickly as well. I think we tend to just like take things really personal as Americans. We say, oh, well, let me tell you why that's not true about, this or this. But I think that in general, as Christians, I think we can do a better job on social media of caring for and loving people, and not alienating people or making people feel like they're not good enough. I hate that. Honestly, like, I hate that. If I feel like somebody's doing that on social media, I will unfollow them. And because I just don't think that's necessary.
Yeah. One other kind of just feel like throwing this out there. If you're married or you're in a serious relationship, you do not really have any business being friends with previous lovers, previous girlfriends, previous boyfriends. Your job, more than to appease someone online, is to protect the sanctity of your marriage. And so,
and some of you who are not married have no business continuing to have a relationship with somebody that you previously had a relationship as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just think in general, like, who, like, you have to ask yourself why. Why do I feel the need to be connected to this person still. And it's
sometimes it's hard because you know, if you unfollow someone or you block someone, or you know, there's people that I have blocked online. I don't want to they're friends with other people, but before I knew Jesus, I had people that I was intimate with, and I don't want to send the wrong guy. And some people sometimes will send me friend requests, and I say no, you know, not because I'm trying to like be a jerk or be self-righteous, or but so some of you might be listening to this and you're like, wow, I've never thought about that principle before. The rule isn't like, and I think this is good for anything in life. The rule isn't the standard, like, oh, we have these rules and these rules are what make us right. No, like these boundaries are in place because it protects what I love. Yeah. Like I have those boundaries in place, not because I think about that scripture, like all things are permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Like I have these boundaries in place against other relationships that I used to have because this is the main thing. I liked it and I put a ring on it and she's my boo. She's my love. Like I'm protecting this. Yeah. And so anyone else, I'm not interested in. If I get any kind of hint, like, oh, this girl texted me or she messaged me online, or if I get any kind of, I'm like immediately I say, hey, I just want you to know about this. And it's not out of judgment but it's because I got to protect this. And if you're single, same thing, like protect your heart. Yeah. Or if you're in a serious relationship, like protect your heart.
Yep. And if you are, I mean, sometimes there's a tendency to go back and look at, when I was kind of doing some research about technology and social media and all that, and I'm telling you, the biggest things that I kept reading over and over were anxiety, depression, people feeling like they're not measuring up, like comparison across the board. And I think if you have the tendency, like Travis is sharing, if you had a past relationship with somebody and you're still friends with them, and now you see them and then maybe with someone else, or they moved on and they have a new life, and you haven't maybe, or maybe yours isn't as great as theirs appears, it's just not a good situation. I mean, there's nothing good that's going to come out of that. And so being aware of that is huge. I think the other thing, we got to monitor our hearts. And I think really when we start scrolling,
come on,
it's so easy to feel like we don't measure up to what everyone else is doing, or look at all the fun they're doing. I said this at church, like all the beach pictures right now. I'm like, oh, like all the beach pictures. I want to be at the beach, There's a tendency to compare ourselves instantly to whatever we see on our phone. And I just think that is not healthy. And some of us, I'm included in that, some of us have to really be aware of that and monitor our hearts and really recognize, like, why am I scrolling, or why am I watching this person online, or why am I, whatever it is, like, why am I doing that? Because, we say this all the time, we don't put up pictures of the ugly parts of our life. Like, we don't.
Yeah, here's my dirty bathroom. You want to see my dirty bathroom?
You don't do that. Like, if you saw my laundry room right now, you'd be like, wow, this is pigs. But for real, like, we don't do that because we don't need to, and we don't want to. Like, we don't want to put that out there, right? And so, anyways, I think you get what we're saying, but I just think we have to be really careful with that. We have to monitor our hearts. We have to protect our heart. We've been talking about that a lot in the series of really guarding our heart, because every part of our life, it is affected by our heart. Everything that comes out comes from our heart. And so if our heart is not protected, then we're letting in things that we don't want to be letting in. And not only that, but like Travis said before, we're an example to other people. We're an example to our friends. We're an example. We have friends that are struggling with this. Maybe you have friends that are struggling with this, and you can say, hey, this is what I know. I have a tendency to compare myself, and this is what I do, and this is how I know when I can't be scrolling anymore, when this happens, or when I have these thoughts. And I think we have to be the example if we want to help anyone else. If we want to be, walking through this with our kids, or our spouse or whoever, we have to be able to, we have to be our best advocate.
Yeah. So a couple more principles before, as we're wrapping up here. Again, please, if you have any questions, text us, message us, comment on here. We're trying to answer the questions as much as we can online.
If you have questions, let us know.
We really, really appreciate the questions, appreciate the engagement and the comments. This is absolutely a life group. So even though we're the primary ones that are kind of sharing this message, it's important.
We want to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. But kind of a practical step. One somebody asked about, can I, how do you have weekly kind of unplugged times? And I'll share a principle about my life that I think is important, and it's this. And the Bible talks about having a day off. It's called the Sabbath, and the principle of it, I think, is still good. It's a great day to, and that might be for us. Our Sabbath is on Fridays, and so we'll tell people our work, at work, like, hey, if you have something that you want to talk about that's work related, let's deal with that Saturday or Thursday. And Friday is, I delete my email app off because I'm so bad. It's part of my natural routine just to check my email. Or, there are times where I will delete Facebook off my phone that day. I will delete Instagram, because I still use my phone for other things. Like, I love to, I'm so spiritual. I just love to read the Bible all the time on my phone. No, like I do like to take pictures and read Kindle, and I don't have the bingo game or whatever, but watch Netflix. But I don't, I do try to detach from those things. And so think about it this way. If you are in a position where you're creating or you're producing, maybe that's a better word, you're producing through email, through message, and you're having to work, I think it's a good principle to just say, I'm going to unplug. And you can do that digitally if that is good for you. Like, have the rhythm of, I'm going to unplug for a certain amount of time, even if maybe it's at night at a certain amount of time. Maybe it's once a week. Maybe you are watching this on Facebook. Oh, the irony of that. And you realize, I need a break from Facebook, and about how children, interacting online. This is, again, the beauty of this group, is that we can challenge people. Like, if this is a life controlling problem, then seek help. That those links that we posted are great places to start. Having a conversation with other people. You are absolutely not alone. This is a struggle for many, many people. On average, they said, I think the average time of people on their smartphone is 6 to 8 hours a day. And that's up from 5 hours a day back in 2015. So we just keep, this is continuing to be an issue and a struggle and a problem. But there are practical things that you can do to unplug, to detach, and to find yourself, being okay with who you are without having to post something to get that approval, or being okay with, knowing. And listen, just if we can add any value to this, like if you're watching or you're listening and you're tuning in, you have tremendous value. God loves you. We love you. God has a plan for your life. It isn't contingent upon how many followers you have on Instagram. It isn't contingent upon how many likes that you get on your posts. It isn't contingent upon whether or not people notice you. It is contingent upon God sees you. He made you in your mother's womb. You have a tremendous purpose. You have tremendous value. And we love you, and we're for you, and we don't, ourselves included, we don't want to have this unhealthy attachment to finding satisfaction in digital, all this digital engagement. And it is, again, back to the original point. It's how we're, it's how we're wired. It releases dopamine. You're not crazy to find that much fulfillment in it. Like it's literally how these games and how internet and how social media is designed to get you to have engagement. So
yeah, I think the other way to look at this too is to just think like, I'm not gonna let social media set the tone. Like I'm gonna decide, I'm gonna look at my daily usage, and maybe my goal is to decrease that, or maybe I'm gonna just plan to be on less, and I'm not gonna look around to look for my value in things that I post or interactions that I have, but I'm gonna focus on and remember that I'm valuable even without that. I mean, think of how many people lived before we had internet, right? And all those people were valuable. But for some reason, we really struggle to find our value in just being who we are. And I think, honestly, that's a lot of what our kids are struggling with. It's a lot of what teens are struggling with. It's a lot of what we're struggling with. And I think there's a tendency, like we can come home after work and kind of chill, but also feel like, we're still so engaged to some extent. But, real friendships and real interactions are always better than social interactions. And I think, like, being with Travis is 1,000 times better than, texting with him while he's gone. And it's the same principle, like, with my kids, like, yeah, I love texting them. That's one of my favorite things about having older kids. But the reality is, like, of course, the best thing is being with them. Yep. And let's not forget, while we are so focused on our phones, like, what is in front of us? Come on. I mean, the relationships that we have, the people in our lives that we love, like, let's not neglect that for a game or a movie on Netflix that we can watch, 10 years from now when we don't have 4 kids in our house, or, you know what I mean? Like, let's keep the right perspective, because I do think sometimes we get so sucked into what's on our device that we forget to really work on the relationships that are right there in front of us. And so let's not forget that, time goes quick, life is short. We want to make the most of the time we have. And I think spending 5 hours on my cell phone probably isn't the best use of my time. Yeah. And so anyways, it's just some thoughts. Like, there's times where I really just said, once I get home, I'm just going to set my phone on the shelf and, and then just hang out with my family and interact with them, and actually, like, put my phone down when I talk to people. Like, that's a big deal, and I think we kind of take that for granted.
Yeah, this will be the last thing, at least for me, and if Beck has more, she's always able to share that.
I thought you were going to say she always has more to say.
No, that's not what I was going to say.
That's kind of true, too.
Come on. Some of these things, maybe you're a parent and you've never had a conversation with your little kid about, like, hey, if someone walks up to you and, shows you the phone, like, don't look at it. Like, maybe you've never had a conversation with your teenager about their social media usage. Maybe you don't have app blocker or, content blockers, or you don't have your router, figured out. If you need to, there's some links that we posted on all of our groups here. If you have any other questions, please feel free to direct message us. But I just really feel like it's important to say, like, we can't be lazy. We can't be lazy about this area. We can't let, smartphones raise our kids. We can't let iPhones raise our kids. There's no substitute in looking face to face at your kid and affirming them and loving them and calling the best out in your life. There's no substitute for that in your marriage. There's no substitute for that in your friendships. Let's if anything, if we gain anything from this online group, let's spend more time together. Let's spend more time in meaningful relationships, connecting with one each other. Let's get better at loving each other and receiving love.
Yeah. I think one more thought, and this is kind of similar to what you're saying, but I think more than ever, I think it's hard for us to understand, but our kids feel a lot of pressure. They feel a lot of, they feel the anxiety. A lot of them are feeling depressed. I mean, just like I said, you look at all these studies and what they're saying are symptoms of overuse of technology, and those are some of them. And I think, we're adults and our brains are fully developed and we have logic. Our brains are fully functioning and we can decipher between what's real and what's not, and we can really logically say, like, but that's not true. How much, our kids are how many years younger than us, and their brains are still developing, and there's a lot of pressure to, like when we say we compare ourselves as adults, there's more of that happening. My sons have way more friends on social media than I probably ever will. And there's pressure. There's a lot of pressure. And I think if we can help our kids form that positive identity when they're young, or if you didn't do that when they were young, if you can start that now. It doesn't matter how old your kids are, but let's not let them think that their identity comes from the people around them or the things that they're seeing online. Let's help them understand their identity comes from God, that we see in them value before anyone ever has a social media account. It doesn't matter how many friends you have, how many likes you get. Like, let's instill that now. Like, let's make that a priority, because I do think that our teens, our kids, they're struggling. And it is that whole comparison world. It's the, that we're looking at, like, we're flipping through all of these pages and these pictures, and we're having FOMO and we're feeling left out maybe, or everything's documented. And I just think, like, our kids have to work through that. But if they have a strong identity before they get to the point where they have to deal with that, it's going to be a lot easier for them to deal with that in a really healthy way. And so just a couple of thoughts on that. And if you have questions about how to do that, we will. We can talk to you. We are no experts, but we have tried with our own kids to really help them understand their value outside of, what anyone else thinks of them.
Yeah. So I think we're going to wrap up. We're getting close to our time here. Thanks again for tuning in. If you feel like this added value to you, tag somebody, share it. We got this gift card, baby, next week. Tune in.
Who doesn't love Target? And you know what? If you're a Target husband, you can just, and you win this, you can just
stay in that parking lot
to your wife or your girlfriend.
Yeah.
If you're not married yet, whatever, they will love you.
Yeah. So
awesome.
Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you. We have one more week of our online life group next Tuesday night. I will give a little bit of a spoiler alert here. We are going to have, for sure, the Lynn boys are going to be live to start our life group for some live Q&A next week. If you want to ask our sons questions, they're going to be tuning in at the beginning of the group. Maybe the girls too. I don't know yet. I'm a little more nervous about that whole thing.
We would need a lot more than an hour and a half to interview them.
Yeah, but we're going to finish strong next week, and can't wait to connect with you next week. This weekend, Relevant Life, Family Matters. It's going to be incredible. Don't miss it.
Don't miss it. Love seeing you guys.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.